So to kind of set the stage for this deep dive,
Okay.
verse 16 describes an aging man, kind of paints this picture. He's got gray hair, his teeth are gone, he needs a cane to walk. It's a pretty vivid image, right?
It is.
But it's not just about getting old.
Mm.
It's about this universal truth that all of us face,
Yeah.
which is that our bodies are temporary.
This is a core concept in Vedanta, which is the philosophy that Shankaracharya championed. And in Vedanta, the body is seen as a vessel for the Atman, which is the soul or the self.
Okay.
And the Atman is eternal and unchanging. It's kind of like the difference between a wave and the ocean.
Oh.
The wave is temporary, but the ocean that it comes from is vast and enduring.
Okay. I like that analogy. And, it's interesting because have you ever had that feeling where you feel separate in a way from your body and its limitations?
Yeah.
Like when you're maybe pushing yourself physically or you're injured and you feel frustrated by that. Have you ever felt that?
Totally. Yeah.
It kind of makes you think about what's really us.
Yeah.
Beyond just this physical form, right?
That feeling is actually a doorway to understanding the Atman.
Okay.
Now, the verse goes on to say that this aging man that we're picturing,
Yeah.
he's still clinging to desires even as his body is failing.
Even as his body is failing, he's still clinging to desires. It's like trying to hold on to melting ice cream.
Yeah.
Isn't it? It's messy and it's ultimately futile.
It is.
But why do we do this?
Because we often mistake the temporary for the permanent.
Right.
We identify with our bodies, with our roles, with our possessions, with the things that change, and we forget about the unchanging essence within.
Yeah.
So this is where clinging comes in. In Vedanta, desire itself is seen as the root of suffering.
Mm. Okay, desire is the root of suffering.
Now, this doesn't mean that wanting things is bad.
Okay.
It's just that we believe that happiness is found outside of ourselves.
So it's not the desires themselves, it's that attachment to them.
Exactly.
It's that belief that if only I had this or achieved that or was with them, that I'd finally be happy.
Precisely. And Shankaracharya points out that this clinging often intensifies with age.
Oh, really?
As if we're trying to grasp onto experiences that are fading away.
I wonder about that. What kinds of specific desires do you think this man in the verse might be clinging to?
Yeah.
Is it wealth or status or maybe reliving past glories? And I wonder how that connects to what we cling to today as well.
That's a great question. It's like the verse is inviting us to kind of look inward and ask ourselves,
Yeah.
what are some things that you hold on to even when they might be causing you stress or unhappiness?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it's a job that you dislike or a relationship that's not serving you anymore or even an unhelpful habit.
It's almost as if we become afraid of the emptiness that might be there if we actually let go.
Yeah.
So we just keep holding on even tighter.
But that fear is an illusion.
Okay.
And Shankaracharya actually offers several solutions or paths to break free from this clinging. There's self-inquiry, detachment, devotion, and Satsanga.
Okay. There's a lot to unpack there.
Yeah.
Let's start with self-inquiry.
Mm-hmm.
What does that actually involve?
Yeah.
Is it just sitting around and thinking deep thoughts?
It's a little more active than that.
Mm-hmm.
Self-inquiry is about turning your attention inward and asking, who am I beyond my body, my thoughts, and my emotions? It's like peeling back the layers of an onion to get to the core.
Oh.
Self-inquiry is about seeking that core self, the Atman.
So it's less about thinking and more about that deep exploration, maybe through meditation or introspection or something like that.
Exactly. It requires honesty and a willingness to question our assumptions about ourselves, even the ones that we've held for a long time.
And so this questioning leads us to detachment, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is that about becoming a hermit and renouncing the world and giving up all of our possessions?
Not at all. Detachment isn't about renouncing the world, it's about changing our relationship to it.
Okay.
Imagine a child holding onto a balloon really tightly.
Yeah.
They might pop it.
Oh, yeah.
Detachment is about loosening that grip on our desires and recognizing that our happiness doesn't depend on them.
So it's like enjoying things without becoming a slave to them.
Yes.
Like it's okay to want that delicious meal, but my whole world shouldn't fall apart if I can't have it.
Precisely.
Okay.
And that's where the practice of Satsanga comes in.
Satsanga.
Which means good company.
Okay.
It's about surrounding yourself with people and influences that uplift you and support you.
Yeah.
To help you loosen the grip on what's causing you suffering.
So finding your tribe, so to speak.
Exactly.
Finding those people who support your growth and understand this journey. That could be friends or a spiritual community.
Yeah.
Or even books or podcasts that offer wisdom.
Yeah.
It's like having a guide when you're in unfamiliar territory.
Yes. And speaking of guides, how about we delve into those next two solutions that Shankaracharya offers, devotion, and how that ties into this concept of freedom? Would you like to
Keep going. I'm really curious about that.
Okay, great.
Absolutely. Let's keep going.
Yeah.
You mentioned devotion as another key to breaking free from clinging.
Right?
It sounds almost paradoxical, though.
Okay.
Because how can focusing on something outside of myself actually lead to greater inner freedom?
It is a fascinating concept, isn't it?
It is.
So devotion in the context of Vedanta isn't about blind faith or worshiping an external deity.
Okay.
It's about shifting our focus from that limited sense of I to something larger and more meaningful.
So it's not about giving up my desires, but maybe like redirecting them towards something more expansive.
Yeah.
Like instead of craving material possessions,
Mhm.
maybe I feel this deep devotion to helping others or connecting with nature.
Yeah.
Would that be an example?
That's a great example. Think of it like a magnifying glass focusing sunlight. When our attention is scattered, our energy is weak.
Right.
But when we focus our love and attention on something bigger than ourselves, whether it's a cause or a spiritual practice or a deep connection to nature, that energy becomes really powerful and transformative.
It's almost like we're tapping into a source of strength and inspiration that's beyond our own little limited ego.
It makes perfect sense. That's the beauty of devotion. It
Okay.
helps us to kind of transcend the narrow confines of our own desires and connect with the deeper sense of purpose and meaning.
Yeah.
And when we're anchored in that sense of purpose, the ups and downs of daily life have less power to sway us.
Yeah. I can see that. Okay, so we've talked about self-inquiry, detachment, satsanga, and devotion. Shankaracharya really packed a lot of wisdom into this one verse.
He did.
But let's be honest, letting go of things we're attached to is tough.
It can be, yeah.
Do you have any practical tips for kind of navigating that process?
Absolutely. It's important to remember that letting go isn't about suppressing our desires or pretending that they don't exist.
Okay.
It's about shifting our relationship to them.
You used that image earlier of a child gripping a balloon too tightly
Yeah.
and popping it. How do we find that balance between holding on and letting go?
Mindfulness is key here. It's about observing our thoughts and feelings without judgment, like watching clouds drift across the sky.
Okay.
You know, we notice the desire arise, we acknowledge its presence, but we don't get swept away by it.
So instead of immediately reacting to that craving for that extra slice of cake, maybe I pause, observe the feeling, and then make a conscious choice.
Exactly.
It's about creating that space between the desire and the action.
Yes. That space is where our freedom lies. And the more we practice mindfulness, the wider that space becomes, giving us more opportunity to choose wisely.
You mentioned practices like meditation earlier. Are there other ways to cultivate this mindful detachment?
There are many paths.
Okay.
Some people find solace in nature, others find it through creative expression like art or music. The key is finding what helps you to become a compassionate observer of your own inner world.
It's almost like we become scientists of our own minds,
Yeah.
studying our desires with curiosity rather than judgment.
What a great way to put it. And as we become more adept at observing our desires, we start to see them for what they are.
And what's that?
Fleeting mental formations that don't define us. We learn to ride the waves of desire without being tossed around by them.
So it's not about erasing our desires. It's about transforming our relationship with them.
Exactly.
Instead of being ruled by them, we can choose how we respond. It sounds empowering.
It is empowering. And Shankaracharya reminds us that this transformation can lead to a profound sense of liberation. It's like breaking free from a self-imposed prison of clinging and attachment.
It makes you wonder what true freedom actually looks and feels like when we're no longer weighed down by that constant clinging.
That's a beautiful question, and one that lies at the heart of our exploration.
Yeah.
Would you like to venture into that territory?
Yeah, let's definitely explore that idea of true freedom. I think it's a concept that's both intriguing and maybe a little daunting at the same time.
Yeah, it's a profound question and one that has really captivated thinkers for centuries. In the context of Vedanta, though, true freedom isn't about unlimited choices or indulging every whim.
Okay.
It's about liberation from what they call the tyranny of desire, that constant feeling of wanting, craving, grasping.
So it's more of an internal state than like external circumstances.
Yeah,
So like I could be living a simple life but feel incredibly free,
right.
while someone else could be surrounded by luxury but feel completely trapped.
That's a great way to put it. True freedom, as described by Shankaracharya, is a state of inner peace and contentment. And it arises not from having everything we want, but from no longer being dependent on external things for our happiness.
That sounds amazing, but maybe a little elusive. How do we actually get there? It can't just be willpower, right?
It's more of a journey than a destination. And Shankaracharya actually points to 4 qualities that pave the path to freedom:
Okay, what are those?
wisdom, detachment, devotion, and self-knowledge.
We've touched on these a bit, but let's go a little deeper. Starting with wisdom. Is this just book smarts or is it something more?
It's more profound than just accumulating knowledge. Wisdom in Vedanta is about seeing things as they truly are beyond the illusions that are created by our desires.
It's like finally putting on the right pair of glasses
Exactly.
and seeing the world in sharp focus.
And that truth, according to Vedanta, is that our true nature is pure consciousness, that eternal Atman, the soul.
Okay.
So wisdom is realizing that we are not our bodies, our thoughts, or our emotions. We're something much vaster and more enduring.
Which makes me think once you have that realization, detachment becomes a natural next step.
Right.
Because why cling so tightly to things that are temporary and ultimately not the real you?
Precisely. Detachment arises from wisdom. It's not about forcing ourselves to give up things that we enjoy, but about recognizing that our happiness doesn't depend on them.
We can still enjoy that beautiful sunset or that delicious meal, but we're not attached to the experience lasting forever.
Exactly.
Okay. And we discussed devotion as redirecting our desires towards something larger. How does that connect to this idea of freedom?
Well, when we're consumed by our own wants and needs, it's easy to feel trapped. But devotion, whether it's to a cause of spiritual practice, the well-being of others, it shifts our focus outwards. It connects us to something bigger than ourselves, a source of purpose and meaning that transcends the limitations of our ego.
This brings to mind that idea of Satsanga being in good company.
Right.
Maybe it's surrounding ourselves with people who are also on this journey, who remind us of what truly matters.
Exactly. And then there's self-knowledge, which ties it all together.
Yeah.
It's about directly experiencing the truth of who we are not through intellectual concepts, but through a felt sense of being.
So it's not enough to just read about the Atman, the soul.
Right.
It's about directly experiencing that connection.
Precisely. And Shankaracharya would say that this is attainable through practices like meditation, self-inquiry, and living in alignment with our true nature. That direct experience, he suggests, is one of complete freedom. Freedom from fear, suffering, and the limitations of the ego.
That sounds like the ultimate goal.
It does.
But also maybe a lifelong pursuit.
It's a journey, not a destination. And a journey well worth taking. Because as we cultivate wisdom, detachment, devotion, and self-knowledge, we gradually shed those layers of clinging that hold us back from experiencing true freedom.
This has been such an insightful exploration of the Bhaja Govindam and its message about letting go. What are your final thoughts for our listener who's been pondering these concepts along with us?
Remember, this is a personal journey. So start by reflecting on what you might be clinging to and what it would feel like to let go. Experiment with practices like mindfulness, self-inquiry, and Satsanga. And above all, be patient and compassionate with yourself. The path to freedom unfolds one step at a time.
Thank you for guiding us through this deep dive. It's been truly illuminating. And for you, dear listener, may this spark your own exploration of letting go and discovering that boundless freedom that lies within. Until next time, keep diving deep.